Spend the day with me as a girl in her 20s trying to figure it all out. Start my mornings off making my bed and doing a quick walk around my neighborhood. On my walks, I try to reflect a little and journal, very LA of me, but I almost always end up on this bench facing the street. I'm thinking a lot about self-censorship and sex, which is inspired by these two text messages that a friend of mine recently sent to me. I remember writing about sex for my Common App essay way back in high school. The first sentence or word literally read sex. Writing that down, I still volunteered my teacher to edit my essay. I took full advantage of his "does anyone need help" email. I sent him a long-winded reply, 100% based in shame, about how I have this crazy idea, please don't judge me. The only feedback I really got was the concept is good, but you could strengthen the link between the subject and the question you're answering. He didn't really mention the elephant in the room, and the older I am, the more I realize there really is no elephant in the room. I have always talked sex. As my friends got into relationships with their first boyfriends, I would unabashedly talk about sex in front of their boyfriends. I quickly became the friend that most boyfriends avoided, thinking that they were maybe infringing on girl talk. One time after my friend broke up with her partner, she opened up to me about how she was angry at herself for wasting time with someone who didn't necessarily center her. She had never explored her own wants. She didn't even know what she liked. When we were hanging out, I made her run errands with me, and while we were in the car, instead of putting on a playlist, I basically put on a podcast that went over all things relationships. I definitely did a little consensual kidnapping in that moment, but I basically would pause the episode, say my opinion about whatever was being discussed, and then wait for her reaction. These habits of mine never changed throughout all my friendships, but along the way, a lot of people called me horny, someone who didn't have shame, or just inappropriate. For every lighthearted and educational moment I spent with my friends, I also began developing a negative relationship with sex talk because of the reputation it gave me. It took a while for me to realize I didn't do anything wrong. I would argue I did everything right. I treated sex as what it was, normal, natural, and something everyone eventually does. When we censor ourselves and refrain from engaging in conversations about sex, we end up making sex a taboo, and while some people might find it more erotic that way, it is actually so detrimental. Maintaining a sense of secrecy around sex results in a lack of understanding about many elements of sex. Sex is supposed to be consensual and pleasurable. It's an intimate experience you share with someone, but there are health aspects to it. Sexual practices affect our health and well-being. Hiding from sex talk results in barriers to accessing sexual and reproductive health resources, but above all, results in shame. I remember I called my mom. I couldn't have this conversation face to face, and I explained to her the videos that I planned on posting. I felt so scared, worried that she'd get mad at me. In the few seconds of silence she took while processing what I had said, I saw my life flash before my eyes. That's fine, as long as you're not the one doing the X-rated stuff. Her response is a whole nother conversation in itself, but the indifference she showed me reassured me. From that phone call to today, she's actually brought up subjects like STIs, getting tested, and she randomly showed my grandmother one of my videos. I send her all the videos I make, which also shocks people. My grandmother actually told my aunt, so I'm really proud to say that by deciding not to censor myself, I did help shift the narrative in my own household. Having uncensored conversations with people requires a sense of confidence, and I definitely suggest tackling smaller spaces. For me, that meant my mom. By treating sex as what it is, normal and human, it allows people to advocate for themselves and others. So if you also want to be known as someone who won't shut up about sex, I love wearing the badge of honor. The first thing we should do is educate ourselves. There's so many great and different online resources that I use to fill in any gaps in my own sex ed. The other step in engaging in sex talk is really asking yourself, why do we treat sex like it's a dirty word? Why don't you just embrace the word sex? After all, it's just sex.